Hey, everybody, and welcome back to For the Booze.
Talking about the Conjuring House.
That's right.
Welcome back.
Welcome.
Good one.
Thanks.
We are back. We're going to do, I don't try to do a lot of well-known locations
Okay.
for the show, just because we'd run out of stuff real fast.
We would. We like
And-
the variety as well.
Well,
you know.
I think it's a little more fun to learn about lesser-known places, but
Oh, absolutely.
every once in a while, we do like to do a well-known one, and we are going to do a well-known one this week. And this is a very interesting one. I learned some new stuff about it that I maybe didn't know before. And honestly, before we came down here, I was watching something where I learned something totally new about it again.
Awesome.
So we are going to visit the small town of Villisca, Iowa.
Does that mean?
Well, I mean, there's only one location in Villisca that anybody would associate with paranormal that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
And that is the Villisca Axe Murder House.
Yeah.
And this is a story from over 100 years ago.
So long ago.
That is
so
still
long.
unsolved to this day.
It's crazy.
And we are back, and I thought I would be better by our next one, but now that my sunburn is gone, I'm getting sick.
Yay,
Because
the back to school icky.
kids are
Yeah, we're gonna jump it.
back in school, so
Yay.
I'm doing great this year.
Well, before we get into this, babe,
Okay.
I just want to say to all of our podcast friends who listen, if anyone listening has never seen last week's episode that we did, my husband,
Byberry.
this man right here on the Byberry Mental Hospital episode, did the absolute most amazing video
Well, thank you.
that we have ever put out. It has news clips, it has information, it has news articles, and they all pull up on the screen. It's fabulous. So if no one has seen it, please go watch that.
And I'm still
It is
learning.
absolutely worth it.
I'm still learning to edit. You know, it took me 20 hours to do that.
Yeah.
That one. So
But it was so
thank
good.
you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
It'd be nice. Go watch it.
It was so good.
It's an interesting story.
It really is.
It's a wild story. Probably one of the worst ones we've done.
It was rough.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. But Villisca is an unsolved murder for 14 years now, and everybody has ideas of who they think it is. But more importantly, some people think it's haunted, and other people think it's just a story.
Yeah.
So I think we're gonna jump in and find out where we stand on the matter.
Well, I'm excited.
Now, Villisca, Iowa is a small town about an hour away from Omaha, Nebraska, and 2 hours away from Des Moines, Iowa. In the summer of 1912, a family murder shocked this small town of less than 2,000 people and spread fear throughout the homes of Midwest families for years. Now, in Villisca, crimes and violence were almost unthinkable due to its small and relatively safe history. Doors were left unlocked, neighbors were always friendly, and everyone knew everyone in some way or another. This all changed after the horrifically violent deaths of 8 individuals at the home of Josiah and Sarah Moore. These people were pretty well loved. This is small town USA.
Yeah, and they were a staple family in the town,
They were.
from what I remember. Yeah.
When Josiah B. Moore was born on the 29th of December in 1868 in Hanover.
That's my sister's birthday.
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, I didn't even think about that when I was finding all this information. That's crazy. In Hanover, Joe Davies, Illinois. His father, Charles Clarence Moore, was 36, and his mother, Mary C. Gray, was 27. Now, he went on to marry Sarah Montgomery on the 6th of December, 1899, in Villisca, Montgomery, Iowa. Now, while I couldn't find much in the way of early life of Josiah or his wife, Sarah, we do know that he was a prominent businessman in the area as well as a respected church worker. And by all accounts, the family was well respected and generally liked in the community. And Sarah also worked for the church.
Oh, okay.
So they were part of the community. Everybody knew them, loved them, respected them. There wasn't anybody who didn't know them.
Right.
Like this is, you think, we make comments all the time where you're like, oh, we live in small town America.
We do.
This is 10 times smaller.
Well, yeah, it was also over 100 years ago. So, a lot less people, but
just
still
saying.
that small town America feel. And back then religion was huge. So I'm sure just about everyone in this town
Religion is still pretty big.
went to church. You know what I mean?
Some
they knew them.
form of church or another, because I did read things that they're. You want to know what's really weird? I will not get into politics on this show, but humankind these days is like, if you don't believe in what I believe in, you're bad. This is bad. You're an evil person. Apparently, it was not like this back then, even though we were made to believe that. Because in this town, Sarah's best friend went to like a Presbyterian church, and she went to like a Methodist church or something. I can't remember. It might come up. I don't remember, and everybody just got along. Nobody cared.
Right.
Nobody cared what church you went to or what you believed in. It's wild. It's crazy to me.
Should still be that
I feel like it should be more
today.
Relaxed now.
Absolutely.
Because we've progressed as human beings.
Uh-huh.
Now, Josiah married Sarah Montgomery, and they would get married at the home of Sarah's parents. Josiah and Sarah Moore went on to have 4 children: Herman, Catherine, Boyd, and Paul. Josiah had been a resident of Villisca for 13 years and was employed by Frank Jones at the Jones store for 9 years. And that comes up later, so that's kind of important.
Okay.
Now, this past June marked 112 years since the family of 6 and their 2 visitors were bludgeoned to death in their sleep at home in their Midwest Iowa town. The Villisca Axe Murders is still today one of the most heinous crimes in the state's history.
I believe it. It was so bad.
Now, the brutal crime took place overnight on June 9th, 1912, and the town would never be the same again. It remains unsolved despite years of investigations, multiple grand jury hearings, a slander lawsuit, and a murder trial, according to the Iowa Cold Cases blog. And we got a lot of our information from the actual Iowa Cold Cases.
Oh, wow.
Because I wanted to make sure it was right.
It was true and correct.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure it was right. Now, Josiah, or Joe as his friends called him, and his wife Sarah took their 4 children, Herman, 11, Catherine, 10, Boyd, 7, and 5-year-old Paul, to the Children's Day service at the Presbyterian Church. Accompanying them were 12-year-old Lena and 8-year-old Ina Stillinger, neighbors who had asked their parents' permission to stay overnight with the Moore children. So, same thing kids do nowadays.
Yeah.
The Children's Day service held earlier that day was an end-of-the-year Sunday school program. Now, Sarah Moore was a co-director, and her children performed their little speeches and recitations along with the other Sunday school members. So this was like a tradition end of the year. It's like something you do.
Oh, it's cute.
Now, the service ended with a social mingling that lasted until at least 9:30 p.m. When parishioners left on that cloudy, damp, and cool night, no one suspected that neither the Moores nor their overnight guests would never be seen alive again. Now, they walked the 3 blocks to their home. Cookies and milk ended the festive evening, and everyone went to bed. Sometime after midnight, the killer or killers picked up Joe's axe from the backyard, entered the house, and bludgeoned to death all 8 of its occupants. Now, something that wasn't actually on the Iowa cold cases, so I don't know if this was something that is speculated or maybe they just don't view it as pertinent information. But we know, because we've watched a lot of stuff about this home,
Right.
that it is believed that the killer or killers were hiding in the attic because they found cigarette butts and stuff like that up there.
Yeah, like little stash spots, like they'd been there for quite some time waiting for the family to come home.
But I found it strange that, because this information is taken straight from Iowa cold cases, and I didn't come across that.
Really?
Yeah. And that's the information that they're using to investigate the actual case. So I don't know where that comes from.
Well, we've heard it multiple times.
Everything we've ever seen on this place, I have heard that.
Yeah,
everything.
Absolutely. Wow, that's interesting.
By 7:30 a.m. on June 10th, Mary Peckham, an elderly neighbor to the west, became concerned that the Moore house seemed particularly quiet and deserted, especially after having sleepovers. Now, she called Joe's brother Ross, a local druggist, or what today we'd call him a pharmacist,
yeah,
who arrived at about 8 a.m. to look around. Now, his cautious inspection of the downstairs revealed 2 figures covered with a sheet in the back bedroom, and he also saw blood on the bed frame. Ross stepped back and away from the crime scene and called Joe's hardware store, telling employee Ed Selly to fetch Marshall Henry Hank Horton because something terrible had happened. Now, Hank arrived about 8:30 a.m., went through the house, and found, as he told Ross when he came out, somebody murdered in every bed.
Oh, God.
The partially cleaned murder weapon was left leaning against the south wall of the downstairs bedroom where the visiting Stillinger girls were found. Now, the killer had added 2 bizarre touches to the murder scene. The first was a 4-pound piece of slab bacon leaning against the wall next to the axe. The murderer also had searched dresser drawers for pieces of clothing to cover the mirrors in the house and the glass in the entry doors. On the kitchen table was a plate of uneaten food and a bowl of bloody water, which I'm assuming he probably used to clean himself up with.
To wash his hands, yeah.
I don't care what's going down. Don't waste bacon.
Right. I
love bacon.
Just gonna say that.
Yeah, I feel like that's like a boomer trait now.
Why?
I love bacon.
Why would you waste bacon? Seriously, you're just gonna leave it in a bloody house? Come on now.
What does that say about us? Because little kids were just murdered.
I know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Good that we watch a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we're pretty desensitized to it. Now, all the victims were found in their beds, their heads covered with bedcloths, and all had their skulls battered 20 to 30 times with the blunt end of an axe. Now, the ceiling in the parents' bedroom and their children's room upstairs showed gouge marks apparently made by the upswing of the axe, and because he had it turned,
Yeah.
the blade side was hitting the ceiling.
Yeah, I use the butt of the axe, which is a lot more blunt.
I am going to add some clips in this from another YouTube channel that we were just watching, because he got an interview with somebody who said things that I've never seen anybody else say, and I want to add them in here.
Yeah, we started watching. I went and started getting ready, but
It's really-
just what little bit of it that I heard was very interesting.
It's very interesting. Yeah. And I want to support his channel because I've watched him for years. Even, I kind of off and on when I'm pretty sure he was faking stuff, but
yeah,
he bobbles back and forth, and it seems like he's back on the right path again. So, although Lena Stillinger's nightgown had been pushed up and she'd been left exposed, this is a little girl. This is, I believe, the 8-year-old.
Yeah.
Doctors concluded she had not been... It's so hard to read that. Lena also had a blood stain on her knee and an alleged defensive wound on her arm. I think it's because I have daughters.
Yeah. And the defensive wounds, I think, make it a little worse. Like, she knew what was happening, whereas I think the adults and most of the other children just were sleeping.
But here's what I want to know. You're talking about in a time before any kind of forensics, and maybe I'm just naive to, I don't know what all they could have done back then. Mm-hmm. But how did they know she wasn't?
Right.
That's my only thing.
Yeah, that's true.
Now, by the time police, the coroner, a minister, and several doctors had thoroughly pursued the crime scene, word of the vicious crime had spread, and the crowd outside the home had grown. Officials cautioned the townspeople against going inside. But as soon as the premises was clear, at least 100 townspeople gave in to their gross fascinations and traipsed through the blood-splattered home. One of the townspeople even took a fragment of Josiah's skull as a keepsake.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Somebody out there must have it. Now, the Moore Stillinger funeral service were held in Villisca's town square on June 12, 1912, just 2 days later, with thousands in attendance.
I bet.
National Guardsmen blocked the street as a hearse moved towards the firehouse where the 8 victims lay. Their caskets, not on display during the funeral, were later carried on several wagons to the Villisca Cemetery for burial. The funeral procession was 50 carriages long.
Wow. That's big.
It's impressive.
Yeah.
But who committed the Villisca Axe murders? As for the perpetrator of the Villisca Axe murders, the police had shockingly few leads. A few half-hearted efforts to search the town and surrounding countryside were made, though most officials believed that with a roughly 5-hour head start, the killer he'd be long gone. Now, bloodhounds were brought in, but with no success, as the crime scene had been fully demolished by the townspeople. They completely ruined it.
Wow.
Over time, though, many possible suspects emerged, including Reverend George Kelly, Frank F. Jones, William Mansfield, Paul Miller, that's also where that video I watched comes in, and Henry Lee Moore, no relation. Now, Kelly was tried twice for the murder. The first trial ended in a hung jury, while the second ended in an acquittal. And other suspects in the investigation were also exonerated. Now, rumor was that Josiah Moore had an affair with his former employer Frank Jones's daughter-in-law, Donna. Detective Wilkerson of the Burns Detective Agency openly accused Frank Jones and his son Albert of hiring William Blackie Mansfield to kill Josiah Moore. Neither Jones nor his son was ever arrested, and both denied any connection to the murders. However, the potential hitman Blackie Mansfield was arrested in 1916. Detective Wilkerson believed he was also responsible for the axe murders of his wife, infant child, father-in-law, and mother-in-law in Blue Island, Illinois on July 5, 1914, a full 2 years after the Villisca crime.
Oh my God.
This just gets deeper and deeper.
Wow.
Wilkerson also suspected that he was the killer in an axe murder in Paola, Kansas, just 4 days before the Villisca massacre that bore many of the same peculiar details. He also pinned another axe murder in Aurora, Colorado on Mansfield as well. There was a lot of axe murders around this time period.
Yeah, I like what we were watching before with the lady who was writing the book with her dad. They went back and basically across the entire United States.
It went back, I think she said, to 1898.
Yeah, and that's wild.
No, I wrote this way before I watched that, so none of that's in here.
No, I know, but like that's crazy.
But I will plug that at the end so people can go watch it.
Just how many axe murders were in those times?
Yeah,
it's crazy.
I think it was the police didn't have the resources and means that they have today.
No, right, absolutely.
So it was easier for people to get away with stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
Now, Wilkerson convinced a grand jury to open an investigation. Mansfield was arrested and brought to Montgomery County from Kansas City. Payroll records, however, provided a rock-solid alibi that placed Mansfield in Illinois at the time of both Paola, Kansas, and the Villisca murders. So, nothing. Mm-hmm. Now, at 6:30 p.m. on June 9th, which is the day that the day before the family was murdered, William Lear escapes from the Clarinda Asylum heading towards Creston. Sometime around that time, 1 mile east of Villisca, dairyman Mr. Talbot sees a man come, quote, out of the timber and went toward Villisca. Now, his wife and their servant girl also saw him. The family were on their way into town for church and passed the man on the road a short distance east of the Moore home, but nobody knows who this man was.
Oh, that's kind of creepy.
Well, I mean, they know who he was, but like...
Well, yeah, at the time.
I don't know if they ever found him, if they were ever able to connect him. I don't know actually whatever came of him, but this was just one instance where something didn't seem right.
Right.
Somebody knew.
Somebody saw something odd and just decided to say something.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, an early suspect in the murders was Joe Ricks, a man who was arrested in Monmouth, Illinois, when he stepped off a train wearing shoes that were covered in blood. He was let go because there was insufficient evidence. Every homeless person, transient, and otherwise unaccounted for stranger was also a suspect in the Villisca Axe murders. One such suspect was a man named Andy Sawyer. As with many other suspects, no real evidence linked Sawyer to the crime. However, his name came up often in grand jury testimonies. Now, there were two main suspects, though. First was Henry Lee Moore. As early as May 1913, investigators speculated the Moore family's murder might be part of a string of murders by a serial killer. Now, M.W. McClaughry, I think. McClaughry?
I don't know.
McClaughry? I don't know.
It looks weird.
Yeah. A federal officer assigned to the Villisca case announced that he had found a suspect in those murders and 4 other crimes others committed throughout the Midwest around the same time. Henry was son of a Civil War veteran, had a troubled youth, and would later work on a farm where he is said to have impregnated the underage daughter of the farmer he worked for. He was later convicted of forgery and served time in Kansas State Prison. He was the suspect in 3 other axe murder cases as well. McClaughry continued to pursue his theory that Moore was responsible for at least 4 crimes that killed 22 people in the Midwest, and a few took this seriously, even opening official investigations. In the end, Moore was never charged or convicted of any of the crimes.
Wow.
They couldn't pin him down.
I mean, back then, I feel like it was so incredibly hard.
Yeah, but you're
to
also,
do that.
but think about this too. Like, this was also a time where all they really had to do was think you were guilty.
Well, yeah.
And then
they're
boom,
just
they're like hanging you in front of the town.
like, oh, you look kind of guilty.
That's what I'm saying. So
yeah.
it's like it goes either way, but there just wasn't enough. There wasn't
Right.
enough to link him. Now, the other prime suspect in the Axe murders was Reverend George Kelly, a traveling preacher originally born in England. This guy is very strange. In 1917, Kelly was arrested and charged with the murder of one of the victims of the Villisca Axe murders, which doesn't make any sense to me, but
Why
all
would
right.
it, 1 of 8? Like what?
I don't know.
What is that?
Now, he attended the Children's Day program on June 9th of 1912.
Oh.
His presence in Villisca on the night of the murders and his subsequent departure in the early morning hours of June 10th made him a prime suspect in the case. Now, it didn't help that he wrote lengthy letters to investigators and posed as an investigator for Scotland Yard to get inside the house shortly after the murders.
What?
Yep.
Oh my God.
Yeah. It gets weirder.
Oh, I don't know if I'm ready for that.
He also sent a bloody shirt to a drugstore for cleaning the following week. Now, while intelligent and articulate, he suffered from mental issues and was diagnosed with schizophrenia. He had a penchant for peeping in windows and was known as a firebug, and confessed to a series of arson crimes. But investigators failed to arrest him initially for a simple reason: his slight build. Now, at only 5'2" and about 119 pounds, he's like your size.
He's like exactly my size.
That's what I'm saying. The coroner and detectives for hire believed he was physically incapable of the crimes. I gotta say, you are this exact size, and I'm almost positive you could kill me.
Duh.
By the time he was arrested, 5 years had passed since the murders. Witnesses had difficulty remembering details. That, combined with a coerced confession and a lack of physical evidence, left one jury hung and a second ended in a mistrial.
Now, let me just say, like, they questioned his ability, but literally everyone was sleeping. It's not like he
I know.
had to fight anyone. It's, you know what I mean?
They're just underestimating him, is all.
Like,
They're underestimating him.
they're all sleeping. It's crazy.
Yeah, he could do it.
Yeah.
Now, Kelly eventually left the Midwest and settled in New England. His behavior became increasingly erratic. In one stint, he worked as chaplain for a New Jersey chapter of the KKK, giving the invocation before cross burnings.
What?
This dude's whacked out.
What? Wait.
Now, Kelly died in 1959 at the age of 80 in Islip's Hospital in upstate New York, one of the country's largest and most notorious psychiatric hospitals at the time. He and his wife are buried in Woodlawn Cemetery in the Bronx. Now, to this day, the murders have gone unsolved. Many people have opinions as to who committed the atrocious crime. While so much time has passed, though, it seems we will never get an actual answer. Many have come to investigate the property and believe the spirits of the family are still there today. So, maybe eventually they will tell us who did it.
Wow. Wow.
There is what they call the serial killer theory, which I guess I did kind of know about what she was talking about. I just didn't know it as in-depth as what I was hearing. But the man, well, let me go back up here. Mueller or Miller, I guess there was like,
Paul.
there was variations of the spelling because apparently they weren't as, precise about it back then.
I think it was Muller or Miller.
But it started out as Miller, I believe. And apparently every single home, and there were way more than we listed. There were tons. They started back in like 1898. And apparently all the homes were within like 1 mile of train tracks.
We figured out the basic parameters of what we were looking for. A whole family killed in the middle of the night with an axe who lived near the train tracks. Once we were able to narrow that down, we were able to find a rush of crimes. We were able to figure out, okay, this guy did not start in 1911. He didn't start in 1910. He didn't start in 1909. We were finding them back as far as 1906, 1905, 1904. So I said, okay, I've got to push back further. Dad thought he was probably, the first crime was probably going to be in 1906 or 1907. I started on this project. I was alone one night in my house, which is right next to the train tracks, and I was searching for a crime in Maine that I thought might be likely. And I came across this description on a book on Google Books called The History of the Northampton Police Department from 1600 to 1904. That might not be the exact title, but something like that. A very old police book that was just basically a list of records. It said the man who was behind this crime was surely also the fiend who killed the Newton family in Brookfield, Massachusetts in 1898. His name was Paul Miller, and he was last seen headed for the train. When I read that, I was like, okay, we got something here. So I looked it up, found it, and found that there were so many similarities with the Villisca event. Whole family killed in the middle of the night, back of the axe used, not the blade of the axe, the pole of the axe. Special attention shown to the body of the young daughter, a lamp without its chimney. I believe that the mirrors and windows were covered. And one thing that really cinched it for us is that we figured out that before 1911, 1910, 1909, he often set the house on fire after he killed the family.
And this dude started out in like 1898 in Massachusetts, where he killed, he murdered a family in the exact same way, covered the mirrors, like everything to a T. Like to a T. The only difference is he burnt the house down. And that was the MO as time went on, was that the houses were being burnt down. I feel like because so much time has gone by, I can hear my voice. I sound weird. I'm just going to throw it out there. If you want a super in-depth version of the true crime side of this, the Paranormal Files just put out a video like 5 months ago of this topic. And they have a lady on there who her and her dad wrote a book that revolves around this. Mm-hmm. And she makes a very, very convincing claim that this Paul Miller dude is guilty.
Wow. I want to watch it now. I only watched a little bit, but
we have the rest of the day, so we can watch it.
Yeah.
It's actually, what I was watching was really good. I'll probably add clips of it in here, but I encourage anybody who's interested in this topic, go watch it. I like Colin. I don't care what anybody says. He's had his troubled past in the paranormal world because he's gone through phases where he's obviously fake stuff.
Right.
But when he's on, he's on. And when it comes to true crime, he is fantastic.
Oh, yeah. He does great true crime
Him and his
stuff.
wife do that Murder in America podcast, and we both listen to it.
Yep.
It's great. So, I mean, he does very good research. I mean, he's been doing this for years, but he seems to be back on and things are going well. Yeah. And we wish him well because I've been watching him for a long time. But go watch that video, but I will add clips. I'm going to add a clip of her explaining this probably in here. So if you're a podcast listener, you may want to go check out the video that we're going to put out because there will be a clip of the Paranormal Files video in there, his investigation with her. It's very convincing. But before I even heard any of that, I feel like another convincing suspect is the Reverend Kelly.
Yeah, the traveling reverend.
Yeah.
Who just like up and vanished in the wee morning hours after that happened.
I think that's what makes it so hard to solve.
Pretended to be a cop. Like, what?
That's what makes it so hard to solve, is because even today, with as much technology and everything as we have, I understand that 100 some odd years have passed, but I don't know. There's so many people it could have been.
Right.
And the fact that like the townspeople just trampled the house afterwards. And, to the point where they were stealing pieces of skull.
Wild.
We're never going to really know who did this, honestly, but there's so many people who it could have been.
Yeah, and they pulled in at least a handful of people in a separate list from the few that we named.
I only listed the ones that I thought had a good amount of evidence against. There's more. There's way more than this. So many people were allegedly responsible for this crime because it was like, well, they didn't do it. It's them. And then they just kept kind of like going down the list.
Moving on to the next person.
But I don't know. It's super wild just because of how many people were blamed and we never got anything out of it. But we are going to get into some of the paranormal stuff, but obviously we have to tell the history because that's what we do here. There are a lot of very strange claims here, but there is one to me that stands out more than any.
Okay.
And you'll know it immediately.
Okay.
As you'd expect, a house with such a dark and mysterious past quickly attracts rumors of a haunting. This house was lived in for years after the murder, although families never stayed long. There's not a ghostly phenomena that hasn't been reported at the house. We took disembodied footsteps, things moving, voices, apparitions, shadows, bad vibes. You name it, the Villisca Axe Murder House has it. It's been on basically every ghost hunting show, from Ghost Adventures to Scariest Places on Earth, and all of the essential spooky podcasts, including Lore, My Favorite Murder, not to mention an array of YouTube channels. It really does seem like everybody's been there.
Oh, yeah.
And continue to this day, honestly. Now, Villisca is a very small town, but it's a welcomed, friendly destination in an unending ocean of farmland. The Villisca Axe Murder House is right in the middle of a residential neighborhood, and its quaint and cozy exterior is a stark contrast to the legend that surrounds it. And it really is. It's a cute little white house in the middle of suburban, America.
Yeah, and they put up a historical sign that would be in front of like an old house, but it literally just says the Villisca Axe Murder House.
Yeah. But it's just a cute little farmhouse looking house.
It is a cute little house.
And it's just in the middle of the suburbs. It's really weird. Now, the house itself is kept in pristine condition. So the sales booth, gift shop, and bathroom are in the old barn on the other side of the tiny but tidy backyard. Apparently, this place is very well kept up. Now, while there are many claims of haunted happenings here, an article from Vice.com tells of something even spookier.
Oh, okay.
Quote, the clientele at Villisca Axe Murder House ranges from young women who are really, really into true crime to lots of senior citizens who come here for senior bus tours.
Senior citizens.
Well, it's both. But I mean, my grandmother growing up, she watched Matlock and Murder, She Wrote.
Yeah, I guess. Okay.
I mean, the true crime really started with our grandparents, if you think about it.
That's true.
We have a group of senior ladies that come down and try to figure out who the axe murderer was amongst themselves.
That's so cool.
Murder, She Wrote. Angela Lansbury. We also get a lot of ghost hunters. I mean, 90% of our overnight clientele are paranormal investigators. The night that changed everything in 2014 started off like any other normal night.
Uh-oh.
I was in the barn, just waiting for the car to pull up. I saw the car stop, and this gentleman walked towards the barn, and I could see he had a hunting knife attached to his belt. He was wearing camouflage pants, which is kind of normal attire around here, so I just shrugged and let him in.
I think I know this story.
You do. He seemed very normal to me. No red flags, really. My red flag was at first that he was there with his mom and dad, but then instantly I'm like, don't be a jerk. Maybe that's their thing. And he was probably, I'm guessing, in his 50s, and they were quite elderly. Finally, he told me how he was going to give the house a piece of his mind, so I said, oh, cool. Have fun with that. Then I went home to bed. The next morning, I woke up, picked up my phone, and was tagged in a million things on social media. I saw these headlines, quote, man stabs himself at Axe Murder House. I just couldn't believe it. I rushed over to the house where I made a couple of my friends meet me. I didn't want to be flying solo in a situation like that. So we walked in, and right on the floor in the kitchen was a blanket wrapped up, and there was a little teddy bear foot sticking out of it. A lot of people bring teddy bears and dolls and stuff to leave as tokens for the kids, so that bit was normal. But this teddy was all covered in blood. And my first thought was, quote, not again in this house. I went in with a bottle of bleach and a towel because I'd seen that on The Sopranos and dumped bleach all over the floor and mopped the towel around with my foot. At that point, the house's owner, Martha, came in and she was crying. She was like, quote, this is supposed to be fun. Should we just close? And I told her we couldn't close. I told her that if we close, people will say that we had to close because the house was too haunted. Pretty soon, we'd have people breaking in, so I told her, let's just keep going. From there, we kept going. I later found out that the gentleman with the hunting knife had been in the house by himself, doing some sort of solo investigation in the kid's bedroom. And that's where the mom and dad found the knife shoved through their son's chest. Now, he'd been life-flighted to the hospital in Omaha, Nebraska, and he'd survived. That was all I knew. I never heard anything more. I wanted to reach out to him, but I never did, and it wasn't until a few years later that I found out what had happened. Now, the paranormal claims surrounding the Villisca Axe Murder House are long-standing and numerous. Reports of strange occurrences have been common since the home was restored to its 1912 appearance and range from the intriguing to the downright spine-tingling.
Bum, bum, bum.
Photos taken by tourists around the home often come back with strange anomalies present in them. While some have captured supposed orbs inside the house, others have caught long streaks of mysterious light, and others still have come away with images curiously half blacked out as if the photos themselves were cut up.
Oh, that's interesting.
I think of like a shadow figure passing directly in front of the camera as you're taking a photo.
Like right in front of it. So it's blocking out so much of the picture.
Like if somebody was going to take a picture and you just stood right, like half of the picture, you know?
Right. And my thing with like the difference between orbs and then the like the strings of light though, I would absolutely take a string of light as paranormal evidence over just a floating
I'm very
orb.
iffy on anything light anomaly like that, just because there's, dust and hairs that fly around and bugs. So it'd have to be really convincing for me to be like, it's paranormal.
I think we've seen one like string, and I don't even remember where we saw it. I want to say it was like a Ghost Hunters episode, but you were like, wow.
I don't remember.
No?
I mean, we haven't
Let me see
watched
if I can find it.
a lot of that stuff in a while.
Yeah.
So now, during tours, visitors often report hearing loud footsteps from above them only to find no one on the upper floors. In the small attic space, some people report experiencing odd or unsettling feelings, while others say they get the strange odor of cigarette smoke there, as if the spirit of the killer is still enjoying some smokes to pass the time in hiding. Again, though, in the official, police stuff, I didn't really find anything that said that there was anybody up there. I'm not saying that there wasn't.
Right.
Or maybe it's, I don't know.
But
maybe
that's
it's
crazy,
just
though,
left
because
out.
literally everything else we have ever seen about this,
Yeah,
that the person who was hiding in the attic was hiding in the attic.
yeah.
That's
No, I know what you
I
mean.
mean.
I just don't understand because, there's a lot of references that were Iowa cold cases blogs. This is where to get your info. But I just didn't see it on there. So maybe it's just not on there. I don't know. It's very confusing, though.
Yeah.
Now, often the voices of children are sometimes heard in the house. Given that 6 children were amongst the dead in the aftermath of the murders, many who come to visit bring toys for the children, and these toys are often found moved to strange places or arranged in ways no employee had put them. It's believed by many that the spirits of the 6 children are moving these toys and playing with them. Many investigators have attempted to actively play with the young children, and some actually report having balls or toy cars rolled over to them by unseen forces.
He's on your lap. I thought that was a kitty tugging at my leg. Could you please roll the ball back to me? I thought that was a cat tugging at my leg.
Well, that was probably the ghost. They tug on legs.
And it was a little kid.
Whoa.
I was giving the strange.
It's coming back.
That's weird.
Michaela, you got someone playing with you now.
Hello.
Push it back in this direction.
I'm
Push
very nice. I don't think that's the
it
cause.
back in
I think the angle of this room brings it back. It's on a slant.
Yeah, last time I threw a ball in that direction, it didn't come back. It stayed back over there. It's not going to come back to you. It's the slant.
Something's right. Right.
Good job. Hey, Clayton, you got to go next to you. How does it feel? At least we got someone playing with the ball.
Yeah.
For a little while.
Still playing with the ball. Who's making that weird noise? Don't. Okay. Could you please roll the ball directly to me?
I've seen a lot of fake videos, though.
Yeah, that's true.
Because you can find this supposed, interaction, but it's on channels that I give
No credit to.
no.
Yeah.
I know they're faking it. I know they are. Mm-hmm. The activity in the house is noted by some to increase as trains roll through town at night. The Villisca Axe Murder House is very close to the town's train line, and the rumble and roar of trains often envelop the entire town with noise. So it's like rain
Yeah.
in some haunted locations. I find that pretty unique and interesting.
Yeah.
Now, some believe the killer used the cover of the train rumbles to mask the swings of his axe and the sounds of any potential screams. Now, visiting ghost hunters often say noises and disembodied voices in the house can often be heard right after the trains are done rolling through.
Wow. That's something.
So it's like rain.
Wow.
Because the rain is often paired with a lot of stories of, it picks up the paranormal activity picks up when it rains.
Right.
Because there's a
Because of
whole
the energy from the storms.
electrically charged air.
Yeah.
But maybe we're thinking about it all wrong. Maybe it's just something like maybe it rained on that night or when somebody was killed in that location versus the train the man got off of when he went to kill. I don't know, but it just seems like there's these weird correlations to sounds and the environment. I don't know. Even with all those claims, what do the hundreds, possibly thousands who have visited have to say about it? Well, we looked around the internet to find out, and this is what they had to say. In July 2018, on TripAdvisor.com, someone named Silversmith560 wrote, quote, "The tour starts in the red barn behind the house. We listened to Johnny tell us about the history, and we wandered around the house taking photos and asking questions. I'm not sure how to describe some of the things we saw. I'm still trying to figure out how to explain them all logically. I can't say that we saw a ghost or any spectacular paranormal activity, but the sense of eeriness remains. It's hard to imagine the events that took place in this small, quiet house without feeling a chill. Worth checking out."
I mean, I'd check it out.
Yeah, I mean, we're pretty far from it. But.
Yeah.
Now, in June 2024 on Yelp.com, someone named William R. wrote, quote, "Well, a wild experience to say the least. My 3 friends and I had our first paranormal investigation here, and we did not turn up empty-handed. Very real experiences here entailed direct communication through spirit box and EMF reacting devices. Great first experience. Would absolutely recommend. Thank you."
Okay.
So we're getting a little better.
Yeah.
Now, in January 2023, someone named Joseph L. wrote, quote, "I'm an average guy that decided to go to the Villisca Axe House with my wife. I had a brand new camera. As we arrived, I stepped onto the property and the camera stopped working. I had a fight with my wife about the camera in the car as we replaced the batteries. I stepped onto the property and a gust of extreme wind was all around me. As I looked up across the street, there were no branches blowing except for me and around the property. It was very strange. As I took the footage and downloaded it onto my laptop, people said they could see 2 girls in the window. I don't see it, but the next morning, I woke up and the screen was cracked on my brand new laptop. I don't believe in all that haunted stuff, but it makes you scratch your head."
Maybe his wife was just still mad about the story and broke his laptop.
What story?
Or not the story, but the argument
Oh,
that
okay.
they had in the car.
Like,
My bad.
wait, what story? I didn't know they were reading stories.
No.
Probably. He was probably just pissed off about it. And one last story. About a week ago, yes, just about a week ago, on
okay.
Google.com, someone named Destiny G wrote, quote, "Did an overnight paranormal investigation. The house definitely has a weird vibe. I got a sudden wave of sadness on the bed at the top of the stairs and felt uneasy in the attic. Our group got some activity and it was a good night overall. I especially love the cat, Church. She's such a sweetheart. I was a little confused though when we arrived because there wasn't anyone from the house there to greet us, and although there was a book with instructions and rules, I had to call someone to ask a few questions. Most of the other places I've investigated have had someone there on the property when you arrive to go over everything and give a tour. This place did not. We had also stopped at the cemetery to see the graves prior to going to the house. If you do visit, make sure you go there as well." And the only reason I added that was because there's so many reviews. There are so many reviews.
I'm
of this
sure.
place. Dude.
There's so many people that go here. Like so many.
So there are so many reviews. I sifted through thousands.
Wow.
Thousands. I went to every place you could think of. There's a lot of negative reviews that you just don't really hear about.
Meaning?
There are people who claim Like, I mean, obviously you're going to have the people who are upset because they go there and nothing happens.
Well, yeah.
But then there's the people who go there and are upset because maybe they know the history here and they don't feel like the tour guides are giving them accurate stories, like they're beefing up the story to make it seem worse.
Okay.
There's people who come here and say like they had to wait to get in, or
Oh no.
the people were rude to them. But there's a lot, and there was quite a few negative reviews when I was looking for this. And then there's a lot of reviews that have nothing to do with the paranormal. Just people like, I was on a trip and
It's a cool stop.
we went through Iowa, so we stopped at the house and it was cool. And,
Yeah.
we walked around the property. And I even read ones where they said, we didn't have anything booked here or anything, but we showed up and somebody was there. So they showed us around anyways.
Oh, that'd be cool. Just an impromptu. Yeah.
But there are a lot of people who claim to have experiences here. But the thing I found funny about it is all the stuff that we've watched over the years on this place has been like just some of the most extreme haunting stuff that we've ever heard.
Oh, yeah.
But if you go to the actual real people everyday people who have been here, other than the man who he really did stab himself, that is true.
That is a very true story.
But other than that, you don't really hear a lot of extreme haunting stuff, which I find very strange because it's always told in story form to us like it's the spookiest place and
the most haunted place in America.
And I know one of the big claims that people have made, it's like everywhere else.
Yeah.
And one of the big claims that I've seen thrown around by questionable YouTube ghost hunters is that the spirit of the man who killed the family was still there, lurking over the spirits of the family. But why? He left. He was long gone.
Like he bounced. He killed them and left.
He
Why
left.
would he still be there?
That's what I'm saying. He didn't die there.
Yeah.
He's gone. So that doesn't make any sense
What,
to
did he
me.
come back to live with what he did? Like, get out of here.
I don't think he cared.
No.
Obviously, because
Absolutely not.
I do believe that this family annihilation was attached to some of the other ones because it was just too similar. But yeah, there's just a lot of stuff that's claimed here that doesn't make any sense if you actually go read what actually happened here.
Right.
And I actually ended, I could have given you such a good timeline. I don't remember the website. I didn't use any of it or anything, but there was a website I had went to and I found a timeline that literally started at 6:30 in the morning on the 9th and it played out the entire day of what everybody in town was doing. It's insane. It was, I read it.
That's crazy.
I read it. It is very interesting.
Wow.
But yeah, I don't expect anybody listening or watching this not to know what the Villisca Axe Murder House is. This is why I tend to not, write these episodes, just because everybody's done them. Everybody knows about them. There's really nothing new that we can add into it other than our own opinion about it.
Right.
And that's about it. And
Still a cool story.
it is, it's a sad story.
It is a sad
But I still
story.
go back to like, they just assume that little girl wasn't, and I don't know how they would know that. I just don't. I don't. Because that's the thing. In that Paranormal Files video that I was watching, the guy, Mueller, whatever you want to call him by, that was part of his thing.
Oh.
Was assaulting the young girls in the house.
Ew.
And her dress was pulled up
She
over
was
her head.
positioned in a way where that was probably very visibly
I mean, that was
aware
clearly
of what happened.
when one person is like that.
Yeah.
There's clearly an ulterior motive there. So I don't think her dress flew up over her head fighting back. I don't know. It is what it is. It's been so long now. Nobody's ever going to know for sure, but I encourage you to watch the Paranormal Files video, the recent one on the Villisca Axe Murder House, because that, especially the beginning, which I'm going to use clips from, is very, very convincing. We are gonna go watch it when we're done today. But I could just keep going over and over and over about how I don't know and I'm very confused, but it's just one of those kinds of stories. But I do have to ask you, is it real? Do you think the Villisca Axe Murder House is haunted?
I don't know. I'm going to say 50-50. Yeah, sure, it might be. Yeah, sure, maybe it's not. I don't know. This one's always been a tough one for me, even watching stuff over the years, because there's no, like, crazy things that I guess that would make it more on the yes side because it's not like the wild and crazy outlandish things, but I don't know. I think this place has always just been a middle of the road meh for me, so I'm just going to say 50-50. I mean, it was some terrible, terrible, terrible things that happened there and some brutal, brutal things that happened to those people, but I don't know. I'm going to say 50-50.
Okay.
So what about you, babe?
I say no.
Okay.
I say no because usually when I'm like, yes, it's because there was a lot of emotion, but these people might not even have known they were being killed.
That's what I'm saying. Like
they were in bed asleep. They probably, I mean, if I took an axe and turned it around to the blunt side and smashed you as hard as I could with it, you're not waking up.
right. You're going further to sleep.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
I'm not even sure that they even knew that they were being killed, you know? So I don't feel like there was a lot of that emotion, like that emotion and fear and stuff that we've talked about. Now, I could be wrong. They could have woken up. I don't know, but I just don't see it. And up until this one night, this family they were living the life, you know? They lived a good life.
Yeah.
They lived in small town America. Everybody loved them. You know, they had sleepovers with the local kids. And I don't see it. It's a terrible tragedy what happened, obviously.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's just bad. But I don't personally think that there's much going on here at all. If anything, I don't see it.
Okay.
And
I mean, that's fair.
I've seen a lot of people. I've seen real ghost hunter videos that go here, and they don't have anything happen. It's a creepy house because
You know the history.
something did happen there.
Yeah.
But I mean, so no seal this week. But it is what it is. And if you think it is,
Tell us why.
Yeah, tell us why.
Yeah.
Comment below why you think it is, or if you had an experience there. But that's just where we are right now. And again, like I always say, we will eat our own words happily on camera for you guys if we're wrong.
Absolutely. Like
But,
a big old bowl alphabet cereal.
Soup. Oh,
Soup?
okay. Soup
Well, they
cereal.
make
Cereal soup.
They make cereal too. It's alphabet cereal.
I will bet you could go to the store right now and you'd have a better chance of finding alphabet soup than alphabet cereal. Do they make alphabet cereal anymore?
I don't know. I just remember I used to have it.
God, you're old. But that's the story.
Shut up.
That's the story of the Villisca Axe Murder House. And where can they find us?
Well, they can find us on Instagram at @forthebooze_podcast and on Facebook at For the Booze.
You can also find us on X at For the Booze, right here on YouTube at For the Booze, and over TikTok at For the Booze. And shout out to our Patreons.
That's right.
We've got Mr. Joe You Matter. Teresa, oh my gosh, Donald, thank you. And Tina Madot and Milady. I don't know what to say here.
I don't know what you were doing.
I don't know. I was trying to go somewhere with it. But if you'd like to help us out on the show and join our Patreon, we're down here, you know,
We do an extra-
/for the booze _podcast at patreon.com.
That's right. That's where we do an extra podcast on top of the one we do here and our reaction videos on YouTube. And we just read crazy, sometimes good stories from the internet.
No,
and
I
just kinda
figured out a
hang
way. I figured out a way to find better ones. So.
Okay. Yeah.
We did it last week.
We did it last week. Yes.
It's a good time. If you don't mind the fact that it's less family friendly, then yeah, you'll enjoy it. But it's not like this. We keep it family friendly on here.
Yeah.
And don't forget, if you have a suggestion on something you'd like us to do other than Halloween, because I have one picked out for Halloween that I am so excited to do.
All right.
But any other day of the year that you want to hear something that we haven't done yet, let us know. Or even if maybe there's something that we did like way back when we started and you'd want to hear us redo it, because I actually have an idea of one I want to redo after listening to it. Send that in. Or did I say personal story?
Nope.
Okay. Or if you have a personal story, if you had an experience of some kind, or, you know, maybe you and an investigation group went out somewhere and something crazy happened, or you just have some kind of crazy story that you want to tell everybody, write it into forthebooze12@gmail.com. I'm trying to stay on track. I am not feeling great.
We're both kind of all over the place.
Yeah, I'm not feeling
It's
good
fine.
today. So with that's it though, right?
That is it.
Did I get it this time?
We did it.
God, one of these days I'll get it together. After all these years, you'd think I'd have it by now. Go ahead and take us out.
Well, thank you, everybody, so much for listening. And we will See you in the next one.
Bye. Check your attic before you go to sleep.